Right now, let's bring in Peter Baker, MSNBC political analyst and chief White House correspondent for the New York Times, and John Brennan, former CIA director and MSNBC senior national security and intelligence analyst. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. So, John, from an intelligence perspective, are you surprised that Israel could pinpoint exactly where Nasrallah was, or did the Hezbollah leader maybe not expect to be targeted, perhaps while Benjamin Netanyahu was in New York addressing the UN? I mean, overall, big picture, what does this mean strategically?
Well, Alex, I'm not surprised. Israeli intelligence capabilities really are among the best in the world. And I think they have spent the last year, ever since the atrocious attacks by Hamas in Gaza, to do everything possible to find the location of their enemies. And Hezbollah and Hassan Nasrallah certainly was one of them. And so it demonstrates the tremendous capabilities on the intelligence front, but also on the military prowess that they have. They have degraded Hezbollah's communication system with the pager attacks and the walkie-talkies. They have degraded their command and control by knocking out a number of the senior Hezbollah leaders. Now with Hassan Nasrallah killed, I'm sure that Hezbollah is flailing in terms of how to respond and what types of capabilities they can bring to bear at this point. But clearly, I think we are at a very fraught time. It's uncertain in terms of how Hezbollah is going to respond. As has been pointed out by Matt and Aaron, and a very good job of laying out the situation. Hezbollah is a very large organization. It has the militia, but also it has tremendous capabilities as far as, the capabilities inside of Lebanon and from a political, social perspective. So there's a lot of uncertainties. A big uncertainty is how Iran is going to react to this, but clearly Benjamin Netanyahu feels unbridled at this point by the U.S. political environment, because he knows that the United States is going to continue to support Israel in its efforts to try to decapitate Hezbollah. And I think the Israeli military is right now on a roll, and they're going to continue the pressure. But again, the question is, how far and fast is this going to escalate, or will there be a pause so that Hezbollah can basically get its footing back? And but I do believe that they are going to retaliate at some point. And they can't go toe-to-toe with the Israeli military, it's clear. But what they can do, and they've exercised before, the terrorist capabilities abroad.
You mentioned Iran. How significant is the report we're hearing that Iran would soon deploy troops to Lebanon? How much would that change the equation, John?
Well, it might be a move to demonstrate Iran's continued support for Hezbollah, but I don't believe the Iranians are interested right now in getting involved in a military conflict with Israel. So it would be more a demonstration of that support, with the Israelis poised to be able to go across the border into southern Lebanon. They've called it the reservists. I don't think the Iranians are prepared to do battle inside of Lebanon, but at this point, I think they have to do something, because Hezbollah has been their principal proxy over the past several decades.
Peter, in just this last hour, I read part of it earlier, but certainly the president releasing a statement on the death of Nasrallah. And here's what it reads, another part of it to share. The United States fully supports Israel's right to defend itself against Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, and any other Iranian-supported terrorist groups. Yesterday, I directed my Secretary of Defense to further enhance the defense posture of U.S. military forces in the Middle East region to deter aggression and reduce the risk of a broader regional war. Peter, is it clear the Biden White House sees this as a potential tipping point?
Well, look, this is a moment that puts Biden in a bind, right? Because on the one hand, he has supported Israel for the last year since the Hamas attack on October 7th and believes that Israel has the right, as he says in that statement, to defend itself against Hezbollah, which has fired rockets over the last year at northern Israel and has, of course, also killed Americans over the years. At the same time, he's trying to de-escalate the region. He wants to avoid the broader war that might draw in Iran, that might go even further than it's already gone in the last 12 months. And he had been negotiating the idea of a 21-day ceasefire put forward by the United States and France just a couple of days ago, only to be brushed off by Netanyahu, even though the Americans thought that the Israelis were open to it. So there's this tension right now between the Biden government and the Netanyahu government. They did not get advance notice of this strike, and they worry that it's going to lead to exactly what Biden has been trying to avoid all along.
To that point, John, is there a sense, though, of how much the U.S. might have known about this plan, or is there a preference for plausible deniability on the U.S. end? Would the U.S. rather not know?
Well, I think the United States is able to see the preparations that Israel undertakes in order to carry out these types of strikes. But it is my view and my experience that Israel would not give advance notice of a specific strike like the one that killed Hassan Nasrallah to the United States. They may notify the United States officials while the strike is taking place, but not in advance, because they don't want to be in, the difficult position of having told the United States saying, no, don't do that, but then going ahead on their own. But I think, as Peter said, Netanyahu right now sees this as an opportune moment because he can basically just brush off U.S. criticism, knowing that the U.S. presidential election is coming up and that the Biden administration is going to be forced in many respects to continue to support Israel, despite the fact that Israel seems to be ignoring the number of civilian casualties that are incurred in these strikes. They're going after the leadership, and they know that there's going to be many civilians killed and injured, but they seem undeterred by that. They want to use this as an opportunity to really decapitate and destroy as much as possible the capabilities of their adversaries on their borders, whether it be in Gaza or in Lebanon, from being able to carry out strikes against Israel.
Hey, Peter, are both the Harris and Trump campaigns going to have to respond to this escalation in some fashion?
Oh, I would imagine so. Sure, of course. Absolutely. Now, I haven't seen, as of a few minutes ago, I hadn't seen any Truth Social or whatever we call these online posts by former President Trump yet on this, nor have I seen a statement by the vice president. Traditionally, the vice president would wait until the president's statement came out to make any statement of her own. And so we may see one now that his statement is out. But it's a fine line to walk. And it's not what Kamala Harris wants at this point, right? She wants to focus this campaign on the future, on why Trump is a danger to the country, why things will be better under her, blah, 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 et cetera. She does not want to focus on turmoil in the Middle East. And to the extent that this war seems to go on and widen, it opens her up to criticism from both the left and the right. The left, which is unhappy with the Biden administration's support for Israel, and the right, which says the Biden administration isn't giving enough support to Israel. And so it's a distraction for her that's completely unwelcome. And you even hear suspicions on the part of Biden, Harris, people about whether Netanyahu is doing this deliberately to try to elect Donald Trump. It may not be true, but that tells you how deep the suspicions and mistrust are. Right?
Very quickly, John, let me ask you, with the White House saying that efforts for a ceasefire deal were underway, what would have to happen now for that to still be in play?
I find it hard to believe that there's really any prospect for a ceasefire in the near term, either in Gaza or even in Lebanon. There could be, again, a pause that the Israelis might decide to engage in because they're just going to watch what Hezbollah does in response to these most recent strikes. But at this point, I do think the Biden administration is going to do everything possible to counsel restraint on the part of the various actors there. But they have very limited ability at this point to deter Netanyahu and his war cabinet from continuing to roll along. And that's what they're doing. They've built up this momentum, and they feel that they have Hezbollah on the ropes right now by killing the leader. And so they may, in fact, go ahead and try to take out some of those very much entrenched missile and rocket sites that Hezbollah still has in the south of Lebanon.
Okay. John Brennan, Peter Baker, gentlemen, as always, I appreciate your insights, particularly on this momentous day. Thank you for that.